If you think about it, your home is a business. There are many things that you have to do to keep it running. When the economy is doing really well, then that is an amazing time for you to build relationships. If I want to get into any business, I have to decide, okay, what is the cost? What are the expenses? What is it that it's going to cost me to do this business? If you understand also how consumers react to inflation, then that might give you an idea how you should make decisions or decisions that you should make. Hi, this is Paul. I'm coming back to you with FR8Cast from Freight Connect. I am the CEO of Freight Connect, and welcome back. Those that saw our first episode, we really appreciate that, and that you came back to our second episode. So today we're planning to talk about economic indicators, how the economy really does impact our industry. So we'll break that down as much as we can, but it's just going to be more so for educational purposes to understand how the economy works, really how it impacts our industry. So we won't really be talking about what's going on today, but just to give a basic understanding of what's going on. So we really appreciate you being here, and hopefully this episode provides you with some value. Thank you. As we all know, there are many things that change. Every day there's something that we turn on the news and we find something new happening. And not a lot of times we do not pay attention to it, only because it might be dry, it might be boring. We might feel like there's really no connection to what they're saying on the news. But when we stop and really think about it, there's a lot of good stuff that we could pay attention to, and it could really help us out in regards to our business, in regards to our family, in regards to work. So the topic that we're going to be talking about today is going to be economics. Something that a lot of people would rather not talk about, especially when it comes to numbers, graphs, and things like that. That can be really, really boring. But then at the same time, those that are in the transportation industry, especially in trucking, there's a lot of good information there that could help us out. And I want to touch bases on that and hopefully bring it home so that it makes a lot of sense. And when you do hear someone talking on the news about economics and starts to throw out numbers, you might want to stop and listen, because it really might be a benefit to you and help you in making business decisions for your trucking business, whether you're a carrier, a broker, a dispatcher, even a shipper. And it can help you to have better conversations cross lines as well, and to understand a lot of things, especially the prices of things when it comes to fuel, when it comes to the price of the rate, your rates, your transportation rates. There's a lot of things that the economy dictates. And really, to be honest with you, the trucking industry follows the economy. So if we can understand just a few things, I think that it will shed light and help us to make better decisions in regards to our business. So with all of the things that are happening in the world today, it can be very complex because we have so much access to so much information. There's so much to consume. But for the topic that we're going to be talking about today in regards to economics, I'm going to try to break it down so that you can understand it. It may be at a very, very novice level, and you might be more advanced than that, but I really want to be able to bring it to everyone so that we all are on the same playing field, okay? So just to get started, this might be the easier way to go about it. I really like to use analogies that everyone can relate to. And so what I'd like to talk about is being at home. At home, if you think about it, your home is a business. There are many things that you have to do to keep it running, right? Obviously, you have to pay bills. You have to make sure that things are connected. You have to make sure that people are happy in the household. You have to make sure that there's running water. There's so many different things that you have to do and decisions that have to be made. And not every day are the decisions the same. But we have to make sure that we are in tune with everything that is going on in our household so that we can make really good decisions. Now, that doesn't mean that all the decisions are just based upon within the household. There are other factors that are involved, right? There can be a car that breaks down, right? There can be where our children are getting older and there are different needs. There can be things that are going on at the job that impact the household. But all these things we have to consider when we're making decisions, okay? So with that said, when we take that idea and we move it to our business, it doesn't matter what it is you're doing, whether it is that you own a business or you're working for someone or you're considering to own your own business. These are things you need to think about. You have to think about the expenses. You have to think about factors that will impact your business. And it doesn't mean that it's just something that you are totally relatable within your environment. There can be things that happen halfway around the world that actually will impact or could impact your business. So these are things to think about when you maybe see something coming up on the news in the talking about the economy. You might want to sit back and say, I wonder how does that impact the business that I'm interested in getting into or the business that I currently am involved with. And these are just exercises to help you to start thinking about how things are connected, because the world is really small, especially now that we have the internet and other technology. It allows us to do business any time of the day. It allows us to do business with anyone around the world. But again, there are many, 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 many factors that make a difference in terms of how you make decisions for your business. So in economics, basically, there are tons of charts, tons of data, just a lot of information that is used to make decisions, or better yet, to try and figure out what's going to happen in the economy. A lot of that information that is received, that is gathered, compiled, and looked at, that has already happened. Okay. When they're talking about interest rates, or I'm sorry, when they're talking about inflation, or when they're talking about unemployment, things of that nature, that is information that has happened the month before. But it is important data once it's compiled and we look at it over a month, 1 month over the next month, we can see a trend and kind of figure out what's happening there. But as far as that information goes, it's good to know what it's all about. Now, with all of these indicators that exist, we're not going to look at all of them. It would take us forever to point out each one of them. But what we'll do is we'll just look at 6 of them, really, I think 4 of them, and then kind of go from there and just get an understanding of what those are. And maybe that's something you can explore on your own and just kind of get an idea as to what that's all about and how it impacts the trucking industry, how it relates back to the transportation industry. So the 4 that we'll look at will be CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index. That measures inflation. All right. Then we'll talk about the PPI, which is the Producer's Price Index. And what that does, it measures what the producers or those retailers or what have you, their price, what they're paying. So they also have an inflationary component. Then we'll also talk about the LMI. And that breaks down warehousing, transportation, and inventory. So when we look at the different levels of those 3 and combine them, it gives us an idea as to how freight is moving. Are we expecting the economy to be on a growing pathway or a contraction pathway? The other thing that we'll look at will be interest rates. Now, the interest rates is very interesting because that is something that we actually have control of. And when I say we, I'm talking about the Federal Reserve. So they're able to actually increase the interest rate, or they're able to bring that down. And the reason being is they look at a lot of economic indicators to determine whether they need to increase it or decrease it or keep it the same. And what they're trying to do is to maintain some type of stability in the economy to make sure that people are working and that inflation is not going rampant. So that's a big part of what they do and why they exist. A couple of other things that we'll look at, we'll also talk about the Federal Reserve, what their role is, something that I just mentioned. And one additional thing that we'll look at will also be the Trucking Authority entry and exit chart. Well, we'll look at that number, and basically what that number tells us is how many authorities are being issued in a given month and how many exits are happening. So that can really give us an idea of what the economy looks like from that standpoint. So to start us off, we'll talk about the CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index. Now, it's basically what it says, Consumer Price Index. It's basically what the consumer, actually all of us are consumers, what we are paying when we go make a purchase. So one day we might go out, just to give an example, and buy groceries, and that basket of groceries cost us $100. Well, when we look back, if we go back a year ago, that might have cost us $90. So obviously there was an increase in the price. So the CPI will give us a percentage increase from a year ago. Now, we can also get the price increase from the previous month, and that will tell us what the price what the price change was from the previous month. Now, as that price goes up, the more that it goes up, the higher that percentage is going to be. Generally, you want to be around 2%. That's what the Federal Reserve would prefer. But when you start to get to 3, 4, 5, 6%, there's a strain on the people. And there's something more to look at that point. Now, with the increase in pricing, we're not talking about just going to the grocery store and making purchases and seeing the price go up, which really does impact our pockets. And that's everyone's pocket because we all have to eat. But it also goes up in other areas. So if you have a situation with your vehicle and you need it to get fixed, there could be an increase in cost, not just labor costs, but the cost of parts. And when you think about it, those parts have to get from somewhere to the shop so that your car can get fixed. Then there's another cost, which is transportation cost. So as all these prices go up and we don't see the price increase in our pockets, then it becomes a strain on our personal lives. Our money is not stretching as far as it needs to cover these additional expenses. With the CPI, we're talking about the Consumer Price Index, which basically is a measurement of inflation. There's a couple different ways that measurement can occur. When we talk about inflation, we're talking about an increase in price, right, of goods and services. We all spend money on goods and services. We go out to, we have to go visit grandma, right? So we have to spend money on gas. We have to get our car maintained, right? We have to go buy food, clothing. There's so many different things for our house, buying a house. And when we're talking about inflation, it's the price of all these things, okay? So when that price goes up year to year, we can see that in the rating that they give, in the percentage that they give. So they're talking about when they say 2%, 3%, 4% on the on the inflation, that is based upon the previous year. They can also give month to month increases as well. So we can see what the price looks like from the month before. Now, why is that important for you to consider? Well, if that is something that you pay attention to, it might then lead you to look at other things. At the same time, it can help you to understand that, when you do go to the store, it's not a figment of your imagination that this thing is costing you more than before, or that your money is not going as far as it used to go. So when these things happen, there also needs to be a consideration in your wages, right? So if there is this cost of living increase, then there is a possibility that you might get an increase as well in your wages, right? Now, that doesn't always occur, but that would be the idea, right? Now, when this occurs, though, when we're talking about inflation, the price of things going up, there does come a point where demand shifts, right? And sometimes with the increase in price, that is strategic to be able to deal with the restrictions of supply, right? Now, I hope I'm not confusing you, but just to kind of put this in a much simpler scenario, let's say there is, and this would be more for families to understand, if there are Xboxes out there and every kid wants an Xbox, then there is a high demand for Xboxes. The price that has been set for the Xbox, well, obviously, it's not too high for people to make that purchase. And sometimes that price is not high enough because the demand is so great. So with that item, they might increase the price to basically make sure that the supply does meet the demand if they are not able to increase the supply. right? So it can be used strategically in terms of price increases. So as far as decisions that are made at home, there's only so far that our money can go, right? Because as they say, money doesn't grow on trees. So if your kids want an Xbox, if the money allows for that, great. If it doesn't, they might have to get an Atari 2600. I don't know if too many people know what that is, but I guarantee you would be able to afford it. So we have to make decisions based upon how much money we have and the price of things, right? And that also goes into your business. You have to make decisions based upon revenues that you're bringing in and what the cost of things are. And it even goes before that. If I want to get into any business, I have to decide, okay, or figure out what is the cost? What are the expenses? What is it that it's going to cost me to do this business? And what kind of revenue do I have or funds do I have in order to engage in this business, right? Now, in terms of, again, inflation, there we can look and see before we get into a business and see what has inflation done recently, what has been going on with inflation, and is that going to mean that I need more money in order to be a part of this business? Can I afford this business? What might this look like come 6 months down the road? Are we on a trend where I might be out of business within a couple of months? But this is one of the economic factors to really consider when you do anything. So inflation, it is a big deal. Now, when inflation is not an issue, when it is low, it's not something that we think about or that we consider. More money is being spent, things are happening just fine, and that is great. There is nothing to worry about when inflation is low. But when it is high, then we have to think about decisions that we make, whether it's at home or whether it is on the job. We've just talked about CPI, and now we're going to talk about PPI. Now, it sounds very similar, just a letter off, which pretty much it is. PPI is the producer's price index, and it pretty much operates the exact same way. Now, I want you to think about it in this way, though. As we talked about the consumer price index, that involves the consumer, all right? When the consumer goes to the store, they're purchasing from the retailer. Now, think about this. The retailer also has to make purchases, right? And there's an expense on that end. So that's where we get the producer's price index. What is the cost on that end of things? So how much is the producer? How much are they paying? What is their expense? What does it cost them? Now, with that, there can be a fluctuation in their cost, which there can be inflation. If there is inflation, then we're talking about the producer's price index. So we have it on that end, on the producer's end, and then we have it on the consumer end. So there's inflation that can occur on both sides. Now, the correlation of that is this. If we look at the producer's price index and we see a fluctuation, let's say we see it go up, it's a good chance that on the consumer side, the CPI, we're going to see an increase. Because if they're spending more, then they're going to pass that cost on to you and you're going to spend more. So it's kind of a leading forward indicator where when you look at that indicator, there's going to possibly be a correlated adjustment on the CPI. So you can look at the PPI and then consider that and think, on the consumer end, there'll probably be an adjustment. So what do I need to do? So as a trucking company or someone in the trucking industry, if you see the PPI making an adjustment, whether it's up or down, then you have an idea what consumers might do, or better yet, what they might end up experiencing. Okay. So now if you understand also how consumers react to inflation, then that might give you an idea how you should make decisions or decisions that you should make, because there are times where you can consider a specific industry or consider a certain type of product that might be more impacted because of inflation, the adjustment of inflation. So with that, if it goes up, then you might consider this is an industry that I need to focus on in trying to move freight for them. Or if it goes down, you might consider a different type of industry. So I'll give you a quick example. Let's say in the housing market, all right? Well, with housing, there we can think about the construction of housing. Actually, we can go before the construction of housing. We can go to supply and demand, right? If there is a demand for housing, which there is, and that can be on the level of apartments or the level of actual houses, then there's going to be a price structure that exists. Because in building a house, there's a lot of things that go into that. One of the items is lumber. So if there is lumber available, it needs to be purchased, and so that you can build a house. Now, once that house is fully constructed, all the expenses that went into building that house, you are eventually going to pay for, right? And you're going to pay a little bit more than what the builder paid so they can make a profit. But there is an expense for everything that they purchase. So whether it is that doorknob, whether it is the door itself, the roof, the lumber, all the material goes into building a house has a cost, including labor. There's insurance costs, all kinds of costs. So when those costs go up and go down, that's going to determine the value of that house that you're going to purchase, right? So if that house is built when these costs are lower, then your dollar is going to go further because you're going to be able to buy more home. You're going to be able to afford more. But when that price goes up on products such as wood, such as doors, doorknobs, and things of that nature, when that price goes up, you're going to have to pay more. And therefore, your dollar's not going to go as far, and you may not get the big house that you actually wanted. You'll have to make different arrangements, decide to get maybe a smaller house, or maybe wait, and hopefully the cost of things goes down. So on the side of the builder, we're looking at the PPI. We're seeing what the cost is for the builder to build that house. And then on your side, when you're making the purchase of the house so you can move in, we're looking at CPI. So again, if you understand that and you see that PPI is on the rise or on the decline, then you can think about what the experience is going to be on the consumer side. As a trucking company, well, if the price of things are going up on the PPI side, well, then therefore you might think that the demand is going to go down for housing. And if that's the case, then there might not be much construction going on, at least housing construction going on. Now, when the price goes down, then that means that you might find there be more construction when it comes to housing and more people making purchases. Another thing that is involved is interest rates, which we'll talk about a little bit later, which can also have an impact in regards to the demand for houses. Another indicator that we can watch is the LMI, which is the Logistics Managers Index. Now, this takes on three components. It looks at three different components, one of them being warehousing, the other being inventory, and the other being transportation. Okay, so if we think about it, those three things do go together. All right. But we're looking at the different levels in each one of those categories. So just to kind of generalize it, if warehousing space is limited, that there's a lot of demand for warehousing, then that means that product is moving. And that means that you're probably going to be in demand to move that product. As far as transportation goes, if there is limited capacity, not a lot of trucks out there available, then that must mean that trucks are very busy. They're moving product. That means that the economy is moving. Now, when we talk about inventory, we can look at it from a standpoint of the pricing. If price of inventory is going up, the levels of inventory is going up and things of that nature, then we can assume that there is an expansion going on, right? Taking all three of these, looking at all three of these components, if they are moving in a direction where it's saying that the economy is healthy or at least is on fire, then that means that people have money to spend, and product is flowing. Now, with that said, how does that impact you as a trucking company? Well, that means that you're in demand. That means the economy is in your favor. That means that, yes, the rates are going to go up. All right. So you can look at the LMI and get an idea is of if the economy is expanding or if it's contracting. Now, there is a number that is used to determine that. They take all this information that they get from these warehouse managers and what have you, and they ask them questions, and they compile the numbers to determine if it's expanding or if it's contracting. In regards to expanding, if the number is over 50, then that means we're looking at expansion. If the LMI number is below 50, then that means we are looking at an economy that is contracting. So it does give us an idea in terms of, as far as being in trucking, transportation, it gives us an idea as to whether we're going to be busy or not, right? And if it's below 40, then it might be difficult to find loads to move, right? But if it's above 50, then we probably can look at some good times moving forward. So the LMI is definitely one of the indicators to look at, not the only one, but it is one of the indicators to look at. Now, just to break that down a little bit further, when I say transportation, warehouse, and inventory, they each have their own number, right? The number still represents the same thing in terms of expansion or contraction, but it does break it down per component, and then it also combines it and gives you an overall number. Now, another thing to consider when we're looking at the LMI, let's look at the economy first. We know that the economy, there's times that we're going to be in a period where things are in the carrier's favor. That means the economy is doing really well. And there are times where the economy is not doing so well and it becomes challenging for us, right? So when the LMI is over 50, again, it's looking really good for the trucking industry, right? But what do you do when it's below 50? That's a good question because it's going to happen, right? At some point in time, we will experience that. But what ends up, what we need to consider that not when it does go below 50. We need to consider that all the time. When it's at 50, when it's at 60, at 70, we need to consider how is our business going to look down the road, because we do know that the economy goes up and it goes down. All right. So as far as that goes, what do we do about that? Well, a couple of things. I would say when the economy is doing really well, then that is an amazing time for you to build relationships. That is because you are in demand and businesses will talk to you. So you want to be able to provide quality service. You want to be able to build great relationships, have great conversations, stay in contact with them, do what it is you say you're going to do. It's really easy to slack off when the business is coming and you really don't have to do much to get it. But that is a time to really show off, especially when not many others are doing that. So be the one that stands out and be the carrier of choice when things are going good for you, but maybe not so well for the shipper. Now, on the other end, when things aren't going well, at that point, hopefully they remember you when they do have freight to move, because then at that point, when they have freight to move, there may not be a lot of freight moving because the economy is not expanding, it's contracting. But when there is freight to move, they're going to give it to you. That is the idea, because of how you dealt with them when the economy was booming. There might be where people are getting $5 a mile, $10 a mile, right? But the key thing is this: if you don't have to do that, don't do it, because you are looking at your business as you're looking at it from the standpoint of growth. You're looking at it from the standpoint of longevity, right? So when the economy is in their favor, they just might remember how you handled things when things were in your favor, and they might really want to pull back and say, you know what, we need you to move this for 50 cents a mile. And that is not a good thing, right? Because there might be someone out there that will do it, but you want them to remember you for the good things, for how you handled your business when things when the economy was in your favor, and when things are not in your favor, when the economy is not in your favor, you want to be able to continue that relationship and to be able to grow. Talking about another component thing to consider is the interest rate. All of us have heard about the interest rate, and we know probably know what that is, especially if we've ever had a car loan, if we've had credit cards, student loan, purchased a house. The interest rate is everywhere. So basically, that's how much we're spending to on money to be able to borrow money. All right. So with that said, the interest rate goes up and it goes down. Now, depending upon how high the interest rate goes, well, that is how much more we're going to pay back for that money that we borrow. The lower the interest rate is, then the less we're going to pay back, or the less that we're going to pay on that money. All right. So you always want to be looking for the lower interest rate. Now, how does that impact us when it comes to um, um, let's say our everyday lives and then into our business? Well, if I'm looking to buy a house, the higher the interest rate is, the less house that I can get, right? In my business, if I am looking to make a purchase of a new vehicle, well, it's the same thing. My money just might not go as far. But the lower the interest rate is, then the better off I'm going to be. It's something that I can pay back on a monthly basis, and it's money that I can see myself actually paying back overall. But the interest rate does impact how much money we have or how far that money will go. So you might have remembered that I had mentioned the Federal Reserve is actually in charge of the adjustment of the interest rate. When you hear them talking about Jerome Powell and his company of Federal Reserve representatives, they do get together on a regular basis, and I think it's 8 times a year to determine the adjustment of the interest rate, whether it goes up, down, or stays the same. And they're looking at a lot of data to make that decision. And they know that that is going to influence how we spend our money. And that's the whole key. When they see that the economy is really hot and people are spending money and things are just moving along and it's causing interest rates to go up, or not, I'm sorry, it's causing inflation to increase, then they do have a way to tame that, and that is through the interest rate. So they may increase the interest rate, and then that then tames demand, causing you to not borrow as much money or spend as much money on items such as buying a house because the interest rate is too high. Then it slows down or cools down the economy. Now, there's danger in that. If they cool it down too much, right, then people stop spending. And if they stop spending money, then businesses start losing money. And if businesses start losing money, then they have to lay off people. And if they lay off people, then people don't have jobs to spend money. And then people have to file for unemployment. And then we go into that vicious downturn. So it's very, very important in how the Federal Reserve make their decisions. If they do it too drastically, it can have a negative impact. If they don't do it when they need to do it, then it can also cause things to go out of control in regards to inflation. And one last indicator to consider, there are several to consider, but the one that we will mention will be the Trucking Authority Entry and Exit Report. Basically, this report indicates how many authorities have been issued within a given month. We can assume that that number is the number of trucking companies that have been established within that given month. And then the exit side would say this is how many have exited the industry. Now, when you think about that, if there is an increase in regards to entry, then the economy must be doing pretty well. And then if there is a massive exit, then there must be some type of structural, some type of challenges that are going on within our economy. So this is something to consider, but you want to look at other data to really get an idea as to what is going on. this information is accessible, just like all the other information that I provided in regards to the data. And what I'll do is I'll have this information attached to this podcast so that you can access it and you'll have an opportunity to see what's going on right now, to be able to see what's happened in the past, whether it was the past year or the past 2 years, and just kind of play with that and get an understanding of what that looks like. And I think that if you look at it, a few times over the next week or two, you'll really get a feel for what has been going on in the economy and understand some things, even why rates have gone up or rates have gone down. But these are a few indicators that I think would be good for you to check out. For more information and support in regards to understanding the economy and these things that I mentioned, we will have on our new platform, on our new website, which is www.elevatefr8.com. We will be providing this information to help you get a better understanding and a more in-depth understanding as to how these economic indicators do impact the trucking industry. And hopefully this will help you to make different decisions when it comes to your business, decisions that will actually help you to achieve the goals that you have set out for your company. So you can go to our website at www.elevatefr8.com and actually go to the economic section. In our next episode, we will plan on taking this information in regards to the economy and applying it or giving real world situations in regards to the trucking industry to help you get a better visual of how this really matters. At some point, we are very hopeful to bring on somebody smarter than myself and be able to talk about this and give you some real world experience or real world thoughts about how these indicators make a difference and how we can use them to make great decisions when it comes to our business, to help us grow and to help us enjoy a long-term experience in our journey when it comes to our transportation journey. So we look forward to seeing you back here the next time. And if you have any questions, definitely feel free to reach out to us. You can actually go to www.elevatefr8.com and go to the contact us section. You can actually send us information there on our form. If you want to give us a call, you can reach us at 866-342-0040, extension 109. Again, that's 866-342-0040, extension 109. Or you can reach out to us at support@fr8connect.com. Again, that is support@fr8connect.com. Thank you for joining us. Please feel free to click the like button. Let others know about us. Please hit the thumbs up. We look forward to your support. We want to get the word out there and spread this information, especially to those that are looking to get into the industry, for those that are just now getting into the industry, those that have been in the industry a while. And if there's any topics that you're interested in, please feel free to let us know. Thank you and have a super time until we meet again.